You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead, live from the Saratoga backstretch. Seth Merrill, Steve Bick, good morning.
Good morning.
That's all you got?
That's all I got. I'll tell you one thing. I like how your tie, which it picks up my jacket. In fact, my tie. Is that one of mine?
Probably.
I think it is.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
This one I can't say for sure though, because this is more in my wheelhouse. The solid color.
Solid color.
I know. I know if I'm wearing something of that variety, I know it came from the bag of ties.
No stains.
Sacco ties.
Sacco ties.
Sacco ties.
And I've already had like 3 people on the front side ask me about the ties. Sacco ties.
Sacco ties, one of the greatest gags in regional television.
Yeah, go down in that regional television Hall of Fame.
Aren't there regional Emmys?
There are regional Emmys. There are regional Emmys. You're exactly right. So we're not shooting for it, but
listen, I'll take anything. Why not?
Today on the show, again, as you can see here with the catalogs, we'll be talking a little Fasig-Tipton with Max Hodge. Dave Grenick from the Racing Form will swing by. We'll talk some of the stakes action yesterday. And he was here yesterday, but after the win, we wanted to talk with Rick Violette because another tour de force performance by Diversify yesterday after what was just a quirky weather day.
It was a tough day, and I think for the most part, a lot of smart decisions made, particularly calling off the well in advance, the 10th and the 11th.
It was like a crystal ball prediction.
Very much. I mean, even if the weather hadn't rolled in the way it did before the Whitney, it still made a lot of sense to scuttle the 2 late races, the Lure and the Waya, which will come back next Saturday and Sunday. So they'll enhance the coming card this weekend. The extended delay, it was funny because I think a lot of people were, I won't say excited, but there were people that got a big kick out of the fact that we were going to have an old school 9-race Saturday card. Chuck Simon, who's up for the sale, Chuck said, wow, this is like when I was a kid, 9 races on Saturday. We still didn't get out of here until 7:15. It didn't matter.
You know what was hilarious? There was the big delay. I stood out in the paddock, and it was kind of sprinkling, and I was under a tree, and they announced the delay, and then it started to rain harder, and I eventually came in, and then it came down. And it was a 41-minute delay from scheduled post time to the actual post time. But what was hilarious, they came out on the track, and Sam gave the bugle call. The crowd erupted on the call to the post.
There's also some very funny antics going on. There were the shirtless lunatics that you see at football games. I don't know if they brought them in special. Maybe NBC has them and moves them around, like chess pieces. But it was a festive crowd. It was a big crowd.
Over 40,000.
Big Whitney Day crowd.
Officially 40,306.
It was great. Overall, things I thought came off really well, and that included the action on the racetrack. Well, as Seth said, Rick Violette's going to join us. This is a win for Diversify that obviously, I'm not going to say it has an asterisk, but it is an unusual set of circumstances because there's no way to say that there was going to be that result had the racetrack been the way it had been playing up to that point, because in fact horses from off the pace and outside had been prevailing on the main track, and that may have played against Diversify. In fact, I think Dave Grenick's going to be with us too from the forum. I even heard Dave Grenick ask Rick, as the day was unfolding, were you concerned about the racetrack? And there's no doubt that this benefited Diversify in terms of his ability to control things up front. But make no mistake, he is in absolute top form. This was a very clever call by Violette. Yeah. This is the first time I wrote yesterday when I was doing my final handicapping and writing things up. And I noted that was the first time that Diversify had run 4 times uninterrupted without a layoff line. First time. And it really was smart for Violette to come out of the Suburban and realize, let's go ahead and run and not wait for the Woodward. And that's got to be applauded. Now, did things kind of break his way? Yeah, a little bit. But they play this game outdoors, and so you deal with the hand you're dealt.
It was interesting. Obviously, Rick Violette himself liked the workout that then led him into the Whitney. But yesterday on with Brian Nadeau, Chad Summers was in here, and Chad said, I watched Diversify's workout and immediately knew he was going to go.
And while we got the chance, we'll fill out more of the blanks with Rick when he joins us. And we'll talk about Mr. Evans and his wife and their niece, Lauren. Ralph Evans is one of the nicest people in the game. And this is a wonderful win. I said to him, this is a nice addition to your trophy case. And, you think about some of the stake, the most recent stake success they've had, Rick Violette and Ralph Evans would be Upstart, but they go back a long way together, and Ralph Evans deserves as many wins like Whitney's as he gets. Let's talk for a second about the runner-up and the third-place finisher. Not everybody, any number of people were scoffing at the notion of running Mind Your Biscuits 9 furlongs. They were scoffing at running him in the Metropolitan Handicap. Let's talk about what Chad Summers and his team and the horse have come close to doing. And that is winning the Metropolitan, beaten like this, and then potentially on maybe a different surface, winning the Whitney. Chad Summers has done an unbelievable job with this horse. One of the best stories in recent memory. A horse that came home like came home from the sale and has just maximized every opportunity. My guess is they'll head for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which is one turn at Churchill, which is right in his wheelhouse, and I got to applaud that. And then Uriah St. Louis. If you didn't see Dave Grenig's story from Thursday in the Daily Racing Form, pull it up, because here's a guy who grew up within a couple of miles of Aqueduct, was going to vocational school and on the track team, and literally would run from school to Aqueduct to place a couple of bets and then run up back to school. Unbelievable story. A gambler. I called him this week the Trinidadian Bobby Frankel, because he literally came out of the grandstand and started training horses. And what he's done with Discreet Lover is astounding. It's a wonderful story. So the top 3 finishers in particular, just terrific. Some horses did not like that surface. Dalmore took 2 jumps and had no interest. Taprit sort of slogged it out. He looked super physically coming into the race. And I think he just tolerated the surface. The rest of it, it just, that's the hand you're dealt. What are you going to do?
Yeah, Backyard had with a couple of duds in a row now. I'm interested to see how he bounces back next time. But it was fun. Again, we'll talk more about that race going forward. Pulled up some replays also. Before we did that, I talked on the Handicappers Report with Dick Powell a little bit, but I just wanted to mention for our Southie side friends, Philly wins the Hambo yesterday down at the Meadowlands.
Very
Atlanta wins the in a quick 150-4. That game has changed since I started watching over here. 150-4.
Wow, the horses, the standardbreds themselves have not gotten faster per se.
Oh, the equipment has changed completely.
Changed.
Yeah, the sulky and no question about it.
And you don't have Tubby Charlebois in the sulky either.
Watch day to day. They're still floating around. So some of those owner trainers that don't want to give away. Right. But yeah, just wanted to toss that out.
Name a horse Tubby Charlebois now.
But it was my namesake at Monmouth ran second yesterday, Merrill, and I caught up with Mike Deeney. And for folks who don't know,
red hot at Saratoga.
I wanted to get him on, but he was headed back down. I said, I want to know the name, where'd it come from? Well, it's from Poseidon's Warrior, and he said, according to the owners, in Irish or Gaelic, Merrow means mermaid. Who knew? So that's where the name came from.
Oh, you're in trouble now. Oh boy, lights out.
But a nice second for my namesake there down in Monmouth yesterday.
Good job.
Wanted to pull up because obviously it went off after we were on the air last week. But I wanted to pull up the Haskell, get some of your thoughts. We've talked a little bit about it during the week, but number 6, Good Magic, is going to be the winner here. Bravazzo second, Lone Sailor third, Core Beliefs fourth. But it was a pretty good performance by Good Magic, which clearly is going to make him the favorite going into the Travers. You know, I've talked this week. Seems to be a clear second in that 3-year-old division, which was looking for a little definition past Justify. The 3-year-old races up here last week, we talked about those a little bit. Hofburg, tenfold. Wonder Gadot aiming for the Travers. But again, it looks like off of this effort, Good Magic going to be the horse to beat.
No doubt about it. He's the leader in the division. And in fact, I think.
The active leader in the division.
Oh, no doubt. And I think I saw that at Wynn, they made him the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Oh, really?
As a matter of fact, yes.
And well, that older, well, maybe they'll change now.
Well, diversify, we'll see. Rick's going to join us in a little bit. But no, he drowned him. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and came back from the Preakness and absolutely reestablished. Not that he needed to reestablish, but absolutely regained his aura, his glint.
As I say, in a 3-year-old class that was looking for a little definition behind, he stepped it up to be clear number 2.
No doubt.
Behind Justify. Also wanted to pull up one from a couple of days ago here Friday here at the racetrack at Saratoga. Hall of Fame Day across the street, and a great class put in, particularly the pillars of the sport. A lot of big names there, but the Hall of Fame Stakes on Friday afternoon. I like Guido. Guido's number 6 horse. I thought Combatant might be a little bit interesting getting back to the turf after being on the Derby Trail earlier this year. They wind up 4th and 5th. It is Raging Bull, the number 4 horse, lightly raced, and the betting public had it correct, making this one the 5-2 favorite, just getting up over Murad, who I thought was another interesting horse. You got 4-1, a nice price on the number 2 Murad, but in a ding-dong finish, Raging Bull just gets up.
Well, and of course, the turf, you were dealing as well with, with plenty of cut in the ground,
yeah.
And so some of it becomes a matter of, which horses take to that. We'll talk later with Dave Brennig about what went on in the De La Rose, in fact. We're going to have, at the very least, yielding turf today. I know that Seth went over the races that came off, but yeah, that was a Murad. I thought, late in the game, 75 yards out, it looked like Murad was a winner, and another flying finish. Joel Rosario and getting up, and the Hall of Fame lived up to it.
Like that.
Without a doubt.
One more before we take a break. I wanted to pull up the West Virginia Derby because we had Dale in here last week, and he talked a little bit about Mr.
Yes, he
Freeze.
did.
And Mr. Freeze could be an interesting player on the 3-year-old scene because this was only the 4th career start. The West Virginia Derby yesterday at Mountaineer. Mr. Freeze is going to be the number 8 horse. And, man, he runs away from this field. Now, granted, this is not a field of world beaters by any means. High North for Brad Cox was interesting to me. That one will wind up finishing 3rd. But with only the 4th career start, a couple of wins to start the career, 3rd place finish in the Iowa Derby, and now this really nice win by 8 lengths in the West Virginia Derby. Maybe Dale has a little bit of a player on the 3-year-old scene.
No, he's like this horse from early on, and this is a very nice performance bred by Sienna, and Backy and his backer owned To Honor and Serve. And, of course, it's a classic. To Honor and Serve gets sent to Japan or Korea, and suddenly he's got a couple of new stake winners. It's pretty funny how that works. And we'll talk breeding and sales later with Max Hodge from Phasic Tipton. But yeah, Mr. Freeze and Dale Roman's getting hot in the regional derby, but he did have a slug of horses at the beginning of the year, and they're starting to register, no doubt.
All right.
Before we go to the break, I want to put up that photograph. I guess it's as good a time as any, and I would want to take a minute and appreciate.
We do have a delay.
Since coming to Saratoga at the beginning of the meet, Selma Braithwaite, who you see on the right with my wife, with Tina, and with Camille in the middle. Selma, who has started in security at NYRA 20 plus years ago from Trinidad, and then an assistant to Jerry Davis, an assistant most recently to Stephen Travers. Just as wonderful a person as anybody here would have worked with, and that any patron could deal with. Just loved the public, worked in group sales and the parking department with Jerry Davis and then with Stephen Travers and handling so many different areas. And she took sick with cancer a couple of years ago, and things went very badly most recently the last 90 days. And for the entire Naira community and for patrons that may have talked to her or might not have ever known her, our thoughts with her family and all of her friends, which were countless.
You know, as you were talking, I saw the picture, and I was not familiar with her, but as you showed the picture, it dawned on me. I think I was down at the Belmont a couple of years ago, and the ATM machine punched out like $1,000 extra for me. So I went to and I think she's the one who kind of filled out and made it, and then they gave me a little money at the end of the day as a reward for turning it in. But I'm pretty sure she was the one I dealt with. She was really great about it.
Selma Braithwaite.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Rick Violet is in the house. Nice win yesterday in the Whitney.
Sir.
We'll talk about that and more. Stay tuned.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need it. It's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
Really?
We're back from the break, and we're laughing because Teresa Gennaro is off camera, and of course, when Teresa's around, you talk kittens. We had a kitten show up on our doorstep a week ago Saturday. Now adopted, known as Bandit. Siaka, by his barn, there's a kitten that has been adopted by the squirrels and is playing with squirrels. It's dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria, exactly. There was mass hysteria yesterday in advance of the Diversify winning the Whitney, and what I said to Ralph Evans, what a great addition to the trophy case, not just for him, but for you, Rick. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a pretty cool day.
There was some, obviously, there was some tumult and the delay. Different horses have to deal with that. They never unsaddled. They didn't.
Unfortunately,
Talk a little bit about the atmosphere coming in. We'll talk about the backstory and even the decision to run in a minute, but talk about what was kind of a surreal setting.
It was actually from beginning to end. I mean, from getting saddled up to the delay, the black sky, the thunder, the lightning, all the way to the rainbow after the winter ceremony. So it was very surreal.
The track, the decision.
Is that correct English, Teresa? Very surreal. Is that a phrase?
It works. The decision, obviously, by Glenn Kozak to seal the track. I mean, they knew that the storm was coming, and when the sealing of the track occurred, to a lot of degree, benefited you. No,
no doubt. Because the biggest thing I was concerned. I thought the inside of the racetrack was not as fast as the outside, and speed wasn't being favored at all. I mean, even the test that race before. The Klaravich was resolute in the middle of the racetrack to get up, and it seemed that 5 or 6 path up the lane was the best place to be. So we were concerned about it when they announced that they were sealing it, and then the rains came. Everybody was frustrated with the delay, but I really thought that kind of leveled the playing field a little bit.
What do you do with the delay? I'm just curious, the nuts and bolts, because this is an unusual situation, and we always talk about these horses as being creatures of habit. So how do you handle that and monitor them in a situation like that?
Everybody's a little bit different. If they're standing still in the stall and just kind of like propped up on one hind leg and chilled out, that's the best case scenario. We went from there to he started kicking the walls, so you try to move them. It's a little claustrophobic in there with horses going almost hip to hip, passing each other in there, and the people trying to get out of the rain. Diversify can get pretty violent kicking. I mean, he's like a piston. It could be lethal. And there was one gentleman that almost got hurt. So we tried to avoid getting people hurt, getting him hurt, because he was nailing the stall. He was making a lot of noise a lot of times. So we'd go outside and walk around the tree, and you're worried about, we had the tack on for an hour. And so that was frustrating. And then they go through kind of some chemical, biological transformation. You get the tack on, they get the adrenaline going, the endorphins get flowing, get a little wet, and then the longer you go, that kind of gets turned off. And some horses don't rehabilitate. All of a sudden, they don't flip the switch back on 20 minutes later and start this all over, and you don't know what's going to happen until it happens. And fortunately, the switch went back on, and we handled it pretty well.
Should we jump in and take a look at the replay? We'll pick it up. We're going to watch the entire replay here, so just kind of take us through as we open the gate and go around the track. I was standing in the winner's circle, and probably the end of the backstretch, as he kind of opened up an extra length, I said, oh, this one's over, but gets a great break here and clearly goes right to the lead.
That was very cool. The break was critical. We knew we were going to get some pressure from Dalmore, and we thought we'd try to, not get into a head-and-head situation for sure. That wouldn't have helped anybody. But when he beat the latch and cleared the field, I was pretty comfortable, and 23 and change for him is a nice rhythmical pace for him. What's happened is, certainly the last 2 races, the Suburban and yesterday's Whitney, I think he's gotten braver and more comfortable, and certainly made us more comfortable that a half and 46, even going a mile and a quarter, is not that big of a deal for him. And that high cruising speed, it stretches everybody's run.
When the 46 came up, and in this section, when he actually, without being asked, when he extends this lead to about a half a dozen lengths, I thought the race was over then, because everybody else is hamstrung now. Look at him, look at him asking.
And that was a bit of the same way in the Suburban. Actually, the half and 46 bothered me, but the 9 and change didn't, because everybody was off the bridle. Now they were trying to stay in the race, and that diminishes their late kick. They're using fuel that they'd rather be sitting chilly on and trying to explode up the lane. I thought, Ira was very aggressive around the turn to give him as much space. And then here, the first couple of times he hits him, he actually adds another length or 2 to it. And I thought it was over here. Mighty Biscuits was coming, but he started to grind here. He wasn't really coming, he was grinding, and I thought we were fairly safe at this point.
He's kind of upright, too. It's not as if he leveled off and finished. He just
his action stayed very clean and pretty efficient. So he's a very, very good horse.
And as clearly, as you indicated with your decision even to run, I noted that for the first time in his career, he was running a 4th time without a layoff line.
Yeah.
And that 59 and change work that Mike Welsh lauded, basically saying no ill effects from the Suburban, you sort of connected the dots and said, they're doing the right thing here.
Yeah. Well, I would certainly. He kept convincing me we were doing the right thing. I mean, he trained well, shipped up here well, ate well, was moving great. The breeze was actually a throttle down breeze. He'd gone off at almost 24, and the exercise rider chirped him a little bit and went 46-3, and we had him on the walkie-talkie, and I kind of said, whoa, 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 and so he was kind of eased up going 59, so came out of that great. His blood was terrific, and I finally, he kind of said, come on, chicken, enter me,
Explain to everybody, Rick, because there isn't a horseman alive that hasn't been fooled into running in a spot because the appearance is that the horse is doing good and has come out of a race. Can you identify the nuance that says, I don't think that, what would he have had to have shown you to not run?
I mean, they can fool you. Sometimes that fast breeze is them maybe a little over the top and on edge and a little fidgety, and they go fast, but it's not a genuine fast. It's more of an erratic, and that's the decision. You're trying to filter through that. He had done everything else so well. His gallop, a couple of days after his breeze was awesome. His appetite stayed the same. There was no variations. We weren't trying to fit a square peg in a round hole here. The fit was just right, and he kept convincing me that it was the right thing to do. I mean, I really didn't talk jockeys until entry day. I mean, I didn't want to mess up anybody and let them think we were going and not do it. And actually people were gracious enough. Chad was kind enough to let Irad off of Backyard Heaven and to get Castellano and Ron Palucci as a lot of times he can stir up things. He was nice enough to let Castellano get off of his horse to go to Chad, and so sometimes there is some very beneath the surface sportsmanship, and everybody kind of was happy with where they were after the draw.
Give us another glance into his maturity, because we think of fully mature horses at age 5. He's a gelding. He was gelded in 2016.
Right.
But he is now a mature horse. How has he changed in your view with the full flower of being a 5-year-old?
He's always been, up until this year, a bit of a baby. I mean, in that he would notice everything, he would react to things. I mean, not stupidly, but he'd see a bird flying and it catches, or a horse on the racetrack, or just he was very inquisitive, but a little bit of an immature brain at times. And this year he stepped up, like I said, as he's gained confidence and certainly using his early speed, he's given us our confidence to let him do it. And I think the last couple of races we stopped getting in his way.
I want to go back to the Charlestown race because that's a fluky kind of mental thing that you've talked about, and we talk about them being creatures of habit, and it's such an aberration on the page. And you would think, given that bull ring and the 3 turns, the speed would play out. But you said, as a creature of habit, a 3-turn race, he got past the 2 turns and thought his job was done.
I really think, nobody believed me, but, he went his 2 turns. And I think just the wind came out of his sail a little bit. I think it spooked Irad a little bit coming off the layoff. He got, have a little injury at Churchill. So I think being a little protective, he wasn't going to force the issue. But when he realized that he really was just pulling up and he needed a kick in the butt and not a pat in the neck. So we certainly learned from that. And, creature of habit, whatever, he counted to 2 and said enough's enough.
$60,000 question, what's next?
Again, I opened my mouth too soon last time. I really doubt we would do the Woodward. I think we would look at the Gold Cup. Gives us 8 weeks. He's come off 3, very, very good performances. And I think this is one of the times where you have to maybe even discount. If he's looking great, kicking the walls, you're supposed to discount it. Discretion, better part of valor here, and wait for the Gold Cup. Although I would love to win the Woodward, we're not going to, because it's one of those legacy races. He's won the Suburban, now the Gold Cup, the Whitney. Adding the Woodward to that shelf, it'd be pretty cool.
Well, he puts himself in unique company with these 3 wins, and at the same time, for you and for Ralph Evans, I mean, talk about the satisfaction of delivering a horse like this, a horse that is going to be around. I mean, this is clearly a horse that's only hitting his best stride now, and really, you know, at a fulfilled portion of his career. So to have this for you and Ralph Evans, there's got to be tremendous satisfaction. You guys have been together 20 years?
25 years,
25
I believe.
years.
He's a very, very special person. The family is special. There's never any second guessing. There's always turn the page. It's thrilling. You know, when we had Upstart, he did grab me by the elbow one day. He said, you know, you're kind of spoiling me here. I'm liking these big dances. And we were fortunate enough to kind of tumble into Diversify and keep the dance card going.
You started March Magic?
Yep. Yeah, that was our second. We had a horse called Free of Love.
Free of Love?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
In Westchester. Got beat a lip in the Jim Dandy here. The only year it was a Grade 1. Scorpion beat us. The last bob at the wire, that was a killer.
There's an obscure exact from
exactly.
Saratoga history.
Neither one of them was worth a damn after that either, I don't think. But no, like I said, they've been great clients. March Magic was a very, very nice filly. She made about $700,000.
Molly Pitcher.
Molly Pitcher, exactly. Yeah.
I want to toss in also because it was a New York bred exactly. You're a longtime New York guy. What's the feeling of kind of elevating the New York bred program? Because again, it's so important to New York racing in general. You know, a lot of the cards are filled with the New York breds. So to have the New York breds kind of step out and run 1-2 and Diversify, doing as well as he's done now, an open Grade 1 company, that's got to feel good.
You know, there's no ceiling any longer. There's no glass ceiling or any ceiling. New York is capable of breeding very, very good horses, and certainly top of the class. I actually chuckled a little bit. There was some of the commentators saying this might be the weakest Whitney in years and everything, and I had 3 Grade 1 winners, and I'd actually like to go and look at all the Grade 1s across the country and see how many Grade 1 winners were in those races. You know, even Gunrunner was a freak of a horse, and it was a great horse, but I think he was the only Grade 1 winner in last year's Whitney. So I think sometimes it's a backhand compliment, because the 2 New York horses were New York breds were the 2 stars of the race, and somehow in some people's eyes it diminishes it. And I think anybody with a real knowledge of things realizes that it does anything but that.
A couple of very special New York breds.
Exactly.
Before I let you go, I pulled up another replay because I was looking up Buy Self. I wanted to get a little update there. Belmont, we're going to look at him running second behind Hayfield. Hayfield came back to win up here. Hayfield's going to be the number 1. Buy Self is the number 5 in here. Again, runs second after a couple of first place finishes earlier in the career. Talk a little bit about Buy Self.
Really nice filly. I don't think she loved the racetrack that day, and you know, we had to send her a bit, being the inside, and that cost us. Nice filly beat her. I mean, you know.
As I say, the winner came back to win up here just a week ago.
Exactly. We're actually going to run her in.
It's a turf workout.
Yeah.
Okay.
She breathes very, very well. She hits the ground real hard on the dirt. She climbs a little bit. She breathes quite well alone. Thought her action was actually improved over the dirt. So there's the Stallion Series race on the 9th.
On the turf?
On the mile on the turf. That we're going to take a shot there.
All right. Sounds good.
How about Super Committee, who looked like a winner mid-stretch?
Yeah, she had a tough trip. She got annihilated leaving there, and I thought should have won the race. I think she's got a future. She's a very nice filly.
Yeah, and that was what is the nuance? Give everybody an insight of running in a maiden 75 versus the maiden special weight.
Well, that was a stake that day we ran her in. That was one of the New York bred 2-year-old stakes. The big deal was, it was 100,000, and there were only 2 winners in the race. So it was kind of it was an appealing spot, and I thought the actually maiden races might be tougher up here than they were down there. So we took a shot there. Yeah, and I mean, maiden special weight here, they're wars. The toss-up is a Chester Broman bred, and they're legally bred. It doesn't matter if they were bred here at North Korea, if Chester's breeding them. The mare's usually a blue hen of some sort. So, and you can hook that at any race, even the maiden 75. Somebody's trying to take a little bit of relief, but usually that can be a war as well. But any of those 2-year-old maiden race, you might see this year's or next year's champion.
Well, that was a crazy race too. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of winners out of that race.
Exactly.
You
right.
and the Shepherd horse that you probably bet on.
Linda's horse just won. She was 4th in that race, and she won the other day.
That's right. Came back on moderate. There's been a bunch of quick turnarounds.
Yeah.
Both of Mott's maiden winners yesterday on 7-day race.
That was impressive yesterday.
Both of them were good.
Yeah.
Leon Seidler with Casa Creed.
Yeah.
And then the Claiborne, Mucho.
Yeah, that was a big race yesterday.
Well, a big race from Diversify, again, waiting for the figure. It's got to be in about the same range, 107, 108.
You know, and that's historical. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
We got there first.
That's it. Rick Violette, everybody.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Dave Grenning from the Racing Forum will do a little recap of some of the stakes action from yesterday beyond the Whitney, and we'll get his opinions on the Whitney as well. Stay tuned.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service. Malcolm's is a sure bet during Saratoga season. Make your reservation today.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning, live from the Saratoga backstretch, as evidenced by the tractor going behind us, as they will after the horses leave the track, but that's okay because we're at Saratoga, and it's a gorgeous day, sunny here this morning, joined now by Dave Grenning of the Daily Racing Forum, and sunny and beautiful this morning, but have you ever seen a quirky a day as yesterday?
It was sunny and beautiful for a long time yesterday, too, my friend. Yeah, Travers, Birdstone. You know, I think Mary Lou Whitney's to blame here.
Good point.
You know, Birdstone's Travers got a little spooky there, too. And she was sitting down there holding down that trophy, waiting to give it to Rick Violette or whoever would win it. But that was pretty wild. And, you know, there was a lot of griping about canceling the 2 races. And not that they foreshadowed what was going to happen, but in the end, it turned out to be a very, very smart move. Actually, in the beginning, it was a smart move. I thought they actually made the right move, canceling those 2 races.
A lot of people ask me about it. And the one in the middle of the day, you can get away with one, but tactically, practically speaking, you pull the last two out. If they'd moved to the main track, you just looking at the PPs, those are going to wind up to be 2-3 horse fields.
They're bad races. The horses that are in, the trainers that have those horses don't want any part of the main track, and they're bad gambling races.
And they'll come back next weekend and still be good races.
And still be pretty solid races, yes.
Very much. They'll augment those cards next week. Dave, we could do, want to go start with
I got the Whitney up first. So
all right,
so
let's get Dave's impressions. And I've heard your interview with Rick, and in fact, I even used part of it about the decision to run, and it feels like he made the right call, obviously.
Yeah, look, you have a horse that's doing as well as this horse seemed to be doing out of the Suburban. You have to run him. When you're the favorite for $1.2 million, there aren't many races, by the way, guys, that are $1.2 million. If you're going to be the favorite, 8-5 for $1.2 million, you almost have to run, even if you're wrong. And obviously, he wasn't wrong. The horse showed him every sign that, I'm sure he just told you everything here. He showed you every sign that that was positive to run. And look, I think the way this played out, sealing the track, and then the rain actually probably worked in his favor. The sealed track tends to favor those types of front-running horses. But you know what? He's just faster than these horses, and he's one of those rare breeds that can carry his speed at distance of ground, and that's makes him very unique and it makes him very dangerous.
I couldn't help, even before Rick came, but laud the runner-up and the third-place finisher. You wrote about Uriah St. Louis. It's a wonderful story. And what he's done with Discreet Lover, who is now knocking on the door, his next check probably puts him over $1 million. It's amazing. And then Chad Summers and the whole team behind Mind Your Biscuits. And rarely has there been more derision and internet stupidity to the degree of bizarre questioning of running Mind Your Biscuits in this race. Why not only enhance his reputation for going to Japan? And I applauded the idea, and then the horse who, if anybody had watched this horse, you knew he would gut it out. He would give an effort and run hard no matter what the circumstance, and now has missed the Metropolitan by a nostril and maybe a drive fast track away from a Whitney win. I mean, spectacular.
Well, I think we're stretching that part of it out. I mean, he was beaten 3.5 lengths here. He wasn't beaten.
Agreed.
He was second by a half length. Look, it was worth the shot to try. As he mentioned to me on Monday, would you rather run against Imperial Hint for $350,000 in a sprint race like what he did last weekend, or this group for $1.2 million? And at Monday, we didn't know Diversify was going in the race because he hadn't committed to the race yet. So another one who's going to, you're 3-1 for $1.2 million. And you're running against a group that needed to prove themselves versus $350 in the Vanderbilt against a very established sprinter in Imperial Hint who showed up and ran his race. Look, it was worth a shot. The horse ran very well. He never not fires. I mean, this horse always gives you what he's got. Is this going to be his best distance? I don't think so, but he ran well enough yesterday. He, to me, is probably an elite miler. They don't have any mile, from the Met Mile to the Cigar Mile, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile before that, they don't have those races. So you might as well take a swing here. And the horse acquitted himself extremely well. Talked to Chad Summers this morning. He gave me 4 options, leaning toward the Lucas Classic, Churchill, which I believe is at the end of September.
Yeah, 20.
It's 1.1 miles, and I think that gives him the opportunity, to find out how the horse likes Churchill. He's hoping for a fast track that day, see how he runs, stretching out again 1.1 miles. Or from there, he'll keep him at Churchill down, so he can either cut him back to the Dirt Mile or swing again for the Classic.
Makes a lot of sense.
And Uriah St. Louis, it is a great story, and I hope people got it's not the story I wrote, but just his story is a great story. The guy was gambling on horses, and his wife said, "What are you doing? You don't know anything." So he went and learned, and then he became a trainer. And he's a 6% trainer. He's not, he didn't learn the trade and become a 30% trainer. But he bought this horse for $10,000. This is his diamond in the rough. He's made $900,000, and he's another one who shows up and he tries all the time. And you know what's cool about this chart, guys, is that the top 3 finishers, 5 years old, 5 years old, 5 years old. See, you can run a horse at 5 and be effective, and that's what the game needs. The game needs horses to run at age 5 and get a following. Like Diversify's a gelding. He could run around for 2, 3, 4 more years. It'd be great. And how about his resume? Jockey Club Gold Cup, Suburban, which should be a grade 1, but it's not. And the Whitney. he probably told you he's probably not looking at the Woodward, but maybe next year he'll get the Woodward. And there aren't too many horses that won those 3 races. No less.
Is there a list, by the way? Did anybody?
Oh, I don't know.
Gary Doherty from the Pacific Northwest. He has the racing stats and info on Twitter, and he's sort of our own Elias Sports Bureau, essentially. And there's got to be some elite handful types.
The names that he's associated with would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
exactly.
I'm sure that's a pretty small but cool list.
Very much.
Let's jump back and look at the test. Also a grade 1 on yesterday's card. I liked Mia Mischief and got in a nice ding-dong battle with Separation of Powers coming down the stretch. I thought 50 yards from the wire, Mia Mischief was going to get it done. The number 7 horse at a good 7-2, but the 2-1 favorite, Separation of Powers, just comes back again in that last 50 yards or so and gets the win by a neck. Running third was Kelly Schumer, but really nice battle between the top 2 here.
It was. The 2 brushed in upper stretch here above the 8th pole, and like you said, Mia Mischief sort of not spurts away, but is hanging tough, and then the last surge from Separation of Powers, who is now a grade 1 winner at 2 and 3. Her campaign getting started a little bit late this year due to a chip, I believe, that was taken out after the Breeders' Cup last year. So she's a very fresh horse for this fall campaign. I do not know. I did not get a chance to speak with Chad this morning. I'm not sure what direction they go with her. It's kind of the 3-year-old fillies going long are pretty solid.
Yeah.
If you go to a race like the Cotillion, you've got Monomoy Girl to deal with. If I don't know that they would run her back in the Ballerina. It's kind of quick back and it's got to go against older horses. I'm not sure they would do that, but the options are interesting and a bit on the limited side. I would think maybe a race like the Beldame could make a little sense because
one turn
mile and an eighth, and she's a grade 1 winner on that track. You might have to run against the late there, but late's going to do the personal ensign first, so we'll see how that goes. But that, to me, might be something that they're thinking about. Stretch her out around the 1 turn and then see what happens.
Remember when the test was a prep for the Alabama? That's kind of on the.
Yeah, that went away with Alan Jerkins. Yeah. He was one of the few that used that race as a prep for the Alabama.
This was terrific. Kelly Schumer on the turnback too was running late.
She ran solid. She nosed out Alter Moon, who was first time. I would expect Alter Moon to move forward now that a little more time in Chad's barn. I think that filly's going to be okay. Good looking horse, Alter Moon. She was nosed out by Kelly Schumer for third. A little more time in Chad's barn. That horse to me seems like maybe a Gallant Bloom type of horse. I know again that's olders, but there aren't a lot of options now. Straight 3-year-olds going short. I don't believe. What's the race in Santa Anita at the end of the year? Brea. But I mean that's December. We're in August.
Well, and we should mention one horse, and I bring it up because I happened to have spent the day with Rick Waller and his wife Sharon from California. They own Spectator, who probably is headed back to California after the 2 starts, in the victory ride and in the test. She lurched forward before the gates opened, cut her eyebrow, banged her head bad on the gate. Then when the gate sprung open, she leapt in the air, and it was a total disaster. And it looks like she probably will go back to Phil D'Amato and regroup. But met the Wallers. It was their first time at Saratoga. They've been around the game a long time. They breed, and a very, very nice afternoon. And they loved Saratoga.
Who doesn't?
First experience.
All right, let's go to De La Rose. Remained on the turf yesterday, and wound up to be a good thing that it did with another nice ding-dong stakes finish up here at Saratoga this season. Number 1, Uni over number 5, Presus, if I'm coming close to pronouncing that. The European transplant was the 7-5 favorite in here. 5-2 was Uni. It was a Chad Brown exacta finish in here, but again, just a nice little late run for Uni to get up by a chart margin of a head. As I say, another ding-dong finish in the stake here at Saratoga.
Yeah, it's got to be like 10 times this year that Chad Brown's run 1-2 in some kind of stakes race. I would set the over-under at about 10. It's amazing how these fillies show up every time. Uni was supposed to run in the grade 1 Gamely in May. Chad had shipped her out to California, and she got temperature. She had to spend a little extra time out there, and then she came back here and with a bang-up performance. Because if you watch the start of that race, she breaks poorly, and she hits the side of the gate, and I think Irad lost his iron because you see him go down and put his foot back in the iron. So now she's way further back than maybe they were even anticipating. They go 50-4 at her stablemate, who hadn't been out in 14 months, but was trained. These two were training together and training great. They almost look like a workout, the way they've been working. And Perseus gets the jump on Uni, but Uni comes with a dynamite late run under Irad Ortiz Jr., who, by the way, is riding fabulously this whole meet. I think he's 18 wins, leading the pack, but he's put up some really, really solid rides.
Let's talk about the human side a little bit because I have yesterday's recap in front of me. Irad is ahead with 18, Luis Saez 16, Castellano 14, Ricardo Santana 12, Velasquez 11, Rosario 11. Jose Ortiz sitting at 8. Still one of the stories of the meet. I thought this week I don't know why this week as opposed to any other time, but it's getting late, and I thought there'd be a breakout day and he'd kind of move forward. That didn't happen so far.
He had a breakout day. It was at Monmouth.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you're
he won
exactly
4
right.
stakes at Monmouth.
Yeah.
That was okay. That was a decent day.
But
it'll happen here too. He'll have one of those 4-win days.
Yeah, then he'll turn around.
Now, you spot. I have to go back. I think he had the same issue last year, that he was down a lot at some point in time. I think he was down 10. I don't know if it was this late in the meet. Well, late, day 15. He was down 10 to his brother at one point. I'll look that up and tell you today because I have all those recaps from last year. But he came with a giant late run. I expect him to heat up at some point in time. But you know what's happening here is that the wealth is being spread around here. Like you said, Saez is contending, and Santana's having a terrific meet. Castellano's getting back in the mix up there too. So Johnny V's always solid. So it's going to be an interesting race that I still in the end think will come down to the Ortiz brothers. Obviously, you spot Irad 10 and the way he's riding. I don't know how much he'll catch up. Next week, one of them, probably both of them, will be out of town at Arlington for the Arlington Million. Give somebody else a shot to win a few races. But I think Jose will still get back in the mix. There's still 26 days left of racing here.
On the trainer side, Chad at 16, Steve Asmussen 10, Bill Mott 9, Todd 8, and then it jumps down to Joe Sharp with 4. But Chad's starting to pull away a little bit.
Well, Chad's just he's got all the bases covered, all the categories covered, even in the 2-year-old department. We were talking this morning about Todd's. Todd's won 3 2-year-old races, but I think only one of them was a maiden race on the dirt. And that was a race that was scheduled for the turf, and one that he got put up in. I think that was Guacamole got put up in the controversial
over the Asmussen horse.
Yeah. So the 2-year-olds you think will start firing at some point. The oddest thing, the other story of the meet besides Jose is the fact that Todd Pletcher's 2-year-olds aren't breaking very well out of the gate,
which is bizarre.
Bizarre.
And this is with Bob Duncan, with having hired Bob Duncan full time down in Florida to work the gate.
I don't know if that's happened. I don't know if that's true or not, that he's hired Bob Duncan full time down there or not. But I don't know. I was the mornings I was at Palm Meadows or Palm Beach Downs. I didn't see them, but hit him there. But either way, it is kind of odd that they're not breaking.
Very strange.
But that too will change.
Well, other things to look forward to, and some overall thoughts, Dave. A third, basically, as you say, into the season.
Well, keeping in the 2-year-old theme, Steve Asmussen's 2-year-olds just keep firing on all cylinders. Now that Justice of War yesterday was third. It looked like it didn't look like the inside part of the racetrack was the place to be at any point yesterday, whether before the rains came or after the rains came, before the rains came, whatever. It just seemed like, and he got stuck on the rail in the stretch. But all of his other 2-year-olds seem to be firing. Lyrical Lady, who won opening day, will come back on Saturday in the Adirondack. I believe it's Saturday. Saturday the Adirondack. One of them Saturday, one of them Sunday. The 2-year-old, the Saratoga Special. He'll run Tight 10, who was a maiden first out winner at Churchill Downs. They both worked this morning. Look solid enough, and he seems to be loaded as well. He doesn't have as many horses as the Pletchers and Browns of the world, but he's got a lot, and he's also got a base at Churchill Downs, and he ships in, ships out, ships in, ships out, and he's having a tremendous meet.
All right, Dave, got to wrap things up, but obviously appreciate the visit. Tell people to swing by and check the Uriah St. Louis article. Steve already mentioned. Folks should check that out. The DRF.com or the hard copy of the DRF. And every time you or Mike are here, we like to tout also the workout reports. You guys do a great job. I know I had you on the other day. You're doing some of the clocking there, too.
Trying to get it done. Information's key. We're trying to give it out.
That's what it's all about. Dave Brennick from the Daily Racing Forum. When we come back, tomorrow night and Tuesday, Basic Tipton sail down the street. Matt Hodge from Basic Tipton joins us. Stay tuned.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting, where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need it. It's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
If you like to play the Late Pick 5, here's some great news. Capital OTB is now accepting internet wagering on NYRA's Late Pick 5 at Saratoga on all platforms and all digital devices. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com, look for the icon, and there you go. If you're playing on one of your digital devices, just open your Capital OTB Bet icon, click on the menu button, and scroll down to find the Late Pick 5. Late Pick 5 wagering, now at Capital OTB.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning, and we're going to put aside the racing portion of the conversation to welcome in Max Hodge from Fasig-Tipton, the VP of Client Services, long 2-decade career at Fasig, and one of the familiar faces around sales grounds in Maryland and Florida and Kentucky, of course, and right here at Saratoga, one of the most important select sales. And then, of course, next Saturday and Sunday, the New York Breds take over. Max, appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Not at all. And your background is very much bluegrass-oriented, Kentucky Wildcat grad, and then into the business. What was the original impetus?
Going to school at UK, working sales. My father's a horse trainer, a show horse trainer, so got the exposure to the thoroughbred business while I was at school at UK. Yeah.
What division of the show? What show?
He's a saddlebred trainer, American Saddlebreds, yeah.
Very cool. And some time with Shug, huh?
Yeah, as soon as I graduated, I loaded up, headed to Gulfstream. I did the 4.5-year plan, and went to work for Shug and stayed there long enough to know I didn't want to be a horse trainer, and lined up a gig at Fasig-Tipton and been there ever since.
You gotta love, though, at University of Kentucky to say, yeah, I got into the horse game because at Syracuse, I would tell people, I'm a racing fan. They would start talking stock cars. It's like,
no. Well, but broadcasting there, I mean, for the broadcast side,
that worked out.
That's the avenue. Your time at Fasig, talk about the division of responsibilities, because there's recruitment of potential buyers. There's obviously the sales inspection side, lining up the roster that goes into the catalogs, and like I've said, with every Fasig visitor I've had for the last several months, the entire industry still mourning Bill Graves' passing.
Absolutely, he was a great friend and mentor to me, and he's sorely missed.
One of the greatest eyes, literally, in anyone's memory.
It was a pleasure to work with him and learn from him, and he was the master. I mean, he was the best judge of conformation there is, and that's one of our strengths at Fasig-Tipton, thanks to him, is IDing the horses for these sales that best suit the markets.
And talk about that a minute for folks who don't know, because this is called the select sale.
Yeah.
How do people, how do horses get parsed out and pulled into this sale?
The process here starts, it's a nomination process, so people will send in their horses they would like to sell in these sales. We'll evaluate the pedigrees, and then in the spring we start scheduling farm inspections, so we'll go out to the farms and look at the horses, evaluate their conformation, and determine which market suits them best.
So some people wound up a little bit disappointed, but that means when you open up the sale on Monday and Tuesday, you're getting the cream of the crop.
Absolutely. These are 255 of the very best yearlings in North America, and when you come to this sale, you know what you're going to get.
And we should mention, we just showed the catalog cover, which you have here. 6 Grade 1 winners on the cover that are all graduates.
Absolutely, and 3 of them won Breeders' Cup races. It's the highest percentage of stakes winners, Grade 1 winners, every category. This sale is the premier sale.
On the selection front, there's a real interesting element to this, because you're picking horses that may be a little, they have to be to a degree a little advanced on the physical maturity range. I mean, if there's some foals that are first foals out of even a fancy mare, they may be undersized. That's a notorious issue when you get a first foal before a dam has had a foal or two. There's not a lot of room for that baby, or the first baby, to grow completely. What's the balance in terms of deciding what's going to be right for the market conditions? Because let's be honest, you're looking for $300,000, $500,000, $1 million sellers.
Right. It's just a combination of pedigree and the physical attributes they have. You know, you don't want significant conformation deviations. You want a well-balanced, you know, a forward, mature horse at that time. And, you know, you're trying to look through the crystal ball to say, hey, I know I'm on this farm in March or April, but how do you think he's going to progress and look in August? So, you know, we do our very best, and it's all about horses for courses, placing your horse in the right market so that you can maximize your returns when you go to sale. So people do get upset sometimes when you don't accept their horse, but, you know, you're not doing anybody any favors. It's kind of like running a horse over its head. You don't want to put him in the wrong market.
Very much. Let's talk about this catalog and the anticipation over the let's say the last 6-7 years after the financial meltdown.
Sure.
There was particularly for this sale and for July and for the biggest select sales, there was the retreat to proven sires.
Right.
And then as things started to come back and the pendulum was swinging back and people had a little bit more money to spend again, we've seen the reintroduction of the first crop stallion, which for many years had been a market driver. But then the people that were a little tight with cash didn't want to be spending on an unknown quantity.
They wanted the proven commodity at that time. Yeah, but this year is an exceptional crop of first-year sires. You've got American Pharoah, Liam's Map, Honor Code. So this is a great year for first crop sires.
Let's give a rundown. American Pharoah's got a nice balance of colts and fillies. Bayern has got a colt and a filly. Carpe Diem, that I think there's a real feel that Carpe Diem is going to be productive. Competitive Edge gets a filly in the sale. Constitution with a colt and 3 fillies. We'll come back to one of the greatest stories, or one of the most interesting breeding stories going. Honor Code, as you mentioned. Lee has got a colt. Liam's Map, a handful. Palace Malice, son of Curlin, of course, and expected to do well. Summerfront got a colt in the sale. Tapiture with a colt and a filly, and Tonalist.
Tonalist, a grad of this sale.
Yes.
You know, he actually didn't sell. He went through the ring, as did American Pharoah. They were offered. They weren't purchased. Went back to their breeders, and both became superstars.
The rest is history, as they say.
We know that just already from the July sale, there's a certain indice that you get. But who do you expect? And when the yearlings that you've seen so far this year, in the middle portion of the year, before we get to Keeneland and September, who are you impressed with?
Well, I think when you see that those horses made the cut, horses with numbers like that in this sale, their first crop, that means they're doing their job, and those are very nice. So. With the Shug connection, I do kind of favor Honor Code a little bit, but we try to stay in the middle on things like that.
The story I was referring to that is not a first crop stallion. He's had, I don't know, 13 crops. Empire Makers yearlings back in the United States, and one of the oddest stallion careers maybe in recent memory. Empire Makers got 3 colts and 2 fillies. What are your thoughts? What are the expectations?
Well, you know, they always ran so well here. They were probably a little premature in selling him to Japan. Fortunately, they've brought him back, and the ones that we have on the sales grounds are phenomenal. There's one exceptional colt over there that has to be seen. He's over with Chris Bakari, and he's special.
Which 36, 86, or
I'm not sure his hip number. He's in with Bakari. He's phenomenal.
Sale topper potential?
You know, he is that type of physical, so it'd be interesting to see how well he sells.
It's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Empire Maker 2.0, more or less. And of course, I have had the conversation with Garrett O'Rourke, and the offer was just too irresistible.
Sure, yeah.
When it came in.
Yeah, it's you know, it is a business at the end of the day, and when they come calling like that, it's difficult to turn the money away. And had he stayed here, maybe they would have made more. But it's great to have him back, and we're very excited to see these yearlings sell.
Well, they've done okay. They got that Frankel character and Arrogate's career as a stallion. But of course, Empire Maker came back and is at
he's at Gainesway. Yes.
Let's talk about the client recruitment and your role in client relations, because it's always important. And whenever I've got Boyd on the radio, I'll always ask, I mean, are the right people on hand? And also the recruitment of new, potential new owners. And one of the things that is the lifeblood of this sport is getting people to come into the game. And, we've had some people the last couple of years. You think about what Larry Best has done, OXO. You think about the introduction of Phoenix on an international basis. Some new people that are being brought into the game at the sale?
Yeah, there are a few new faces over there shopping. It's interesting, Larry Best. The sale here is so unique, and the atmosphere is phenomenal. The facilities are first rate. It's the best in North America. And Larry Best said he came and just a couple of years ago evaluated the sale and said, wow, I want to get involved in that. Yeah. The same thing with E5 Racing. He came to the sale, and it's intoxicating there, and he came over, and now he's a major player. So that's, I think, one thing that the Saratoga sale offers is the unique atmosphere, and it's a lot of fun for a lot of people.
I want to tie into that just because you're a block and a half, 2 blocks away from the track. For folks who have been, they know how much fun it is. I tell people, if you're coming to the track, come sales week, because it adds an extra punch to your visit. Great racing, but you can go over to the sale at night, which is a lot of fun. The sales ground over the past couple of years, particularly on Monday night, is wall to wall. But you encourage people to come over and watch, because that adds buzz to the whole.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of the locals come out, a lot of golfers, and the place is at maximum capacity, and it's a lot of fun.
I got a kick out of the intoxicating atmosphere. We don't want intoxicated buyers. There's many famous apocryphal stories about the people imbibing a little too much and maybe bringing home a couple of horses they didn't expect to.
Absolutely. We've had them buy the wrong horses. We've had them buy too many horses. We've had, there are a lot of stories that come out of the Saratoga sale.
For your portion of your responsibilities, because you do a little bit of everything, and the calendar basically dictates what you're doing when. What's your favorite part of the business and your role in it?
I think the favorite part is the horses. Being able to do the Saratoga sale, because as you mentioned, we do sales all over the United States. But being able to come to Saratoga, the races, with this weekend of racing, we do sponsor and host people at the races. I think that's the best.
Well, we should mention, we talked about the select sale, but there'll be a turnaround on Wednesday and Thursday, and then the New York Breds will come in, and the New York Breds sale next weekend.
Yeah, we'll sell the selected sales on Monday, Tuesday night, turn the sales grounds over. Those horses will ship out. The New York Breds will ship in. They'll show Thursday, Friday, sell Saturday and Sunday nights.
For those of you that do come, if you've never been, when you walk around the barns, and you don't have to stay right by the ring, You can walk around, you can watch horses being shown, and you'll watch them walk and stand and so forth. And you can walk past the barns, look above the stalls at the little markers, and you'll see the names of horses that stood in those stalls over the course of the decades upon decades of the sales ground. And it's one of my favorite things, to look up and to see whatever champion or even just some nice stake winners that might have been personal favorites. And they're not big, but they're there, and take a note of it. You'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool walking down memory lane and looking at those names that came out of there and all the great horses that have passed through the ring.
I remember you said you've been with Fasig Tipton 20 years. Was it before your time? Because my first visits up the Spite and Dival.
That Spite and Dival was before my time, but I've heard a lot of stories.
It was essentially where the outdoor bar is now. It's just somebody's house with a piano bar in the living room. Those were my early days visiting the sale. Yeah.
Speaking of intoxicated.
Had some fun there.
Are you involved yourself? You got? Have you done the Anna sites and put together some friends for some horse action?
I do have a few horses. Excuse me. I've got one filly with Brad Cox now that a race won't go at Ellis, so she may come up here to run.
Nice.
But I do dabble a little bit, and that's one fortunate thing at Fasig Tipton's we are allowed to be engaged in, and it allows us to relate to the buyers and sellers a lot better because we are involved and we know what they're going through.
Are there any videos of you jumping around like a lunatic? Like
none like, no.
Okay. All right. How are the cats looking for the fall?
Well, Stoops it's better, but not where we
it's not
want
up to snuff yet?
No.
Well, at least nobody's under indictment.
We got to wait for basketball.
I love it. Max Hodge, what a pleasure.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Best of luck.
Good luck over the next couple of days and next weekend as well. All right, we're going to head out, but you wanted to touch on a couple of news stories before we headed out?
Oh, just want to give people a couple of updates. Lava Man, who there was real concern, who colicked and colicked severely earlier this past week.
He's acting as a pony now, right?
Yeah, he's a pony, absolutely. And been released from the clinic, and knock on wood, looks like he's out of the woods. It's amazing, especially as they get older. When the motility or the Dr. Allday once explained that to us on Horse Health on the radio about as horses age, the digestion doesn't get easier. You would think there's less stress and so forth, but there's not. There's some issues when it comes to that. But hope Lava Man will be okay. We're also waiting for further updates about that spill at Del Mar yesterday. Giovanni Franco and Corey Nakatani, and apparently the most serious concerns have been allayed. But keep an eye. We're waiting for an update this morning as to how they're doing.
All right. We'll wrap things up for this edition of Loose on the Lead. Max Hodge from the Fasig Tipton sale. Again, Monday and Tuesday night. Tomorrow and Tuesday, 6:30, a block and a half away from the track. Come up, enjoy the races tomorrow. Go and watch the sales. Always a lot of fun. Dave Greining from the Daily Racing Forum. And again, congratulations to Rick Violet. Nice win yesterday in the Whitney with Diversify. That'll wrap things up for this edition of Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrill, Steve Bick. We're in here every Sunday morning during the Saratoga Meet, live from the backstretch at 10 a.m. We'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.